You're listening to the UnSafe Bible with Pastor Ken Brown.
So for those who are hiding out here on planet Earth, wherever it is the Lord has prepared for them, probably near Basra in Petra and in that area near south of the Dead Sea, that's where they're going to be hiding. For those of us who love the Lord and then are taken out of here, read chapter 4, 5, and 6 of the book of Revelation, and you kind of see what we've got this worship service that we're going to be taking part in. Okay? Great.
There are no longer any prophecies that need to be fulfilled for Jesus to take his church home to be with him. His second coming should be treated as imminent, and your life should reflect your belief that he's coming quickly. Today, Pastor Ken will be challenging you to examine your life and see if your actions reveal that you truly believe he's coming at any moment. The Bible makes it clear that those who actually believe these things will keep themselves pure, just as the Lord is pure. Well, let's join Pastor Ken in the book of Isaiah chapter 26 as he continues his message, The Day of the Living Dead.
With my view, that what we have is a special prophetic message beginning here. It's not part of the song. I looked at it and said, it doesn't seem like it's part of the song, and it's not. It's a different message that's being started here. So now we come to verse 20 and 21, and this is a very provocative message for some people today, especially those who don't believe that there is a pre-trib rapture. Come, my people, enter into your rooms and close your doors behind you. Hide for a little while until indignation runs its course. Behold, the Lord's about to come out from his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth will reveal her bloodshed and will no longer cover her slain. Now remember, we started off chapter 26 with open the gates, and now the command is, and its command is, shut the doors. Now who is this to? Who's this command to? Now remember our context. This is for the remnant. This is who he's talking to. This is for those who will be surviving the tribulation and entering into the millennium. When Isaiah is writing this, there is no future church. They don't know anything about the church. It's just something that they don't see it. None of the prophets really saw the church age. It's a reference to, and it's clearly a reference to Jewish believers of the last days. It's the remnant. And it ties in with some of the comments that Jesus makes. So, I mean, we're talking about very clearly here Jews who are living at the end of the age. But that's not all that we're talking about. But we'll talk about them first. In Matthew 24, verses 15 to 21, Jesus talking says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. So he's not talking to the disciples. He's talking to somebody in the future who's reading this. And he says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place. In other words, when you see this event, and it's however you're seeing it, probably on television, but Jesus can't tell him that. And you see it in the holy place, that's the area of the Holy of Holies, is just right through the curtain. So they're in an area that only the high priest can go into. But when they see this abomination, this thing take place, they're going to know that when they see that, Jesus is saying, that's the trigger point. Okay, this is what you're looking for. Let the one who's on the housetop not go down and take what's in his house. Let the one who's in the field not turn back to take his cloak. Alas for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. There will be a great tribulation such as not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, never will be. Jesus' message to those at the end of the age when they see this event take place is, head for the hills. Now. Not tomorrow, not next week. Leave right now. However you can go. He says, run and hide. This section of Isaiah 26 is talking to another group too, who is also being secured away from the indignation. Now, indignation is a term we see in the Old Testament that's God's judgment. It's talking about the tribulation. That's just another term that we see in the Old Testament. The book of Revelation provides an awful lot of detail about the tribulation, the indignation of God against the earth dwellers. But here, they're not being called earth dwellers, they're being called inhabitants of the earth. The indignation of God against the earth dwellers. But there's a group that's not referenced that's involved in the tribulation. In fact, that group in the book of Revelation is no longer referenced after you leave chapter 3. It's the church. The church is no longer referenced after chapter 4, verse 1, when John hears, "Come up here." The church is not referenced anymore. Everything is about the Jews and what's going on in the land. It's not about the church, because the church is gone. He says, "After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard, like the sound of a trumpet speaking with me, said, 'Come up here, I'll show you what must take place after these things.'" But the church is no longer referenced. Why is the church no longer referenced? See Isaiah 26:20. "Come, my people, enter your rooms." Jesus said, "I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place, I will return and take you and be with me." And Isaiah says, "Come, my people, and enter into your rooms. Close your doors behind you and hide for a little while until indignation runs its course." Now, go back to the Old Testament, go back to the flood. Who invited Noah into the ark after Noah spent 125 years building it? Yahweh invites Noah and his family into the ark, and then Yahweh closes the door. And he carries them through the flood, just as he's going to carry the remnant through the tribulation. But there's also a guy by the name of Enoch. One day, Enoch is out talking with the Lord, and he gets to the end of the day, and he's had a good day with the Lord. And Enoch says, "Well, Lord, it's time for me to go home." And the Lord just says, "Well, let's go to my place." And he's gone. Enoch is a type of the rapture of the church. He's just out of here. He's just gone. Lot, the judgment couldn't start until Lot was taken care of and moved away. And angels had to take him and physically move him to protect him. He didn't want to. He was kind of tied into what was going on in the world, and he said, "No, you're part of the saints. You're out of here." And he took him and drug him away. This invitation to hide that we see here in Isaiah is also applicable to the church. But we're going to be more like the example of Enoch and Lot. It's for those of us who are alive in this last generation, and we're going to hear what John heard, "Come up here." I mean, I actually believe that it's going to be, each of us will be called by name, because he says he's going to call each of the folks out of their grave by name. He's going to say, "Ken, come up here." I'm going to move as quick as I can. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I'm sure everybody else will too. And this is a Hebrew word translated in the New American Standard. It's an imperative word. It's a command. And here's the interesting thing when you start looking at what the different things this word can mean. The word's lek, by the way, in the Hebrew. And it can mean to go, to walk, to behave, to die, to accompany, to go with someone, to bring them along. It can also mean to vanish. That's interesting. "Come, my people, vanish, my people." Just one of the words it could mean. I'm not saying that's what the definition is here based on the context, but that word it can be used for that. The word translated as enter is also an imperative word. And it's bo, and it means to come in, go, or go. So when you look at verse 20, there are 4 commands that show up in it. Come, or go, or vanish, but that's a command, okay? So for those here on planet Earth, go hide. But when he takes us away, he says, come up here, or come vanish with me, or however you want to put it. He says go in, it's a command. He says to close the door. You don't need to know what's going on out there. And he says hide. So for those who are hiding out here on planet Earth, wherever it is the Lord has prepared for them, probably near Basra in Petra and in that area near south of the Dead Sea. That's where they're going to be hiding. For those of us who love the Lord and are taken out of here, read chapter 4, 5, and 6 of the book of Revelation, and you kind of see what we've got this worship service that we're going to be taking part in, okay? It's great. I'm really looking forward to it. We got this little wedding thing to do too, and anyway, it's all in Revelation. But go, my people, enter your rooms is an expression of the compassion of God, that there is a way of escape from his wrath. For those who would avail themselves of it. Noah escapes the flood. Lot escapes Sodom. The Hebrew people escaped the death of the firstborn. Those are all examples. God doesn't want any to perish. He wants everyone to find refuge through grace. He took Lot out. He took Enoch out before it ever even started. And for us as believers, what we're looking forward to is what it's in 1 Thessalonians 4:16-18. With a shout of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpet, the Lord himself will come down from heaven, and the dead who belong to the Messiah will rise first. He's going to call them all by name. Then we who are alive and remain will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air, and will be with the Lord forever. So encourage one another with these words. Yeah, I'm kind of encouraged by that. Those of us who are in Jesus will be taken, and the word for us is come. It's not go and hide, it's come up here. For those of us who are the remnant, for those who are left, those who become part of the remnant, they're not believers when it all kicks off, but they become believers, and they are the ones who are aware of the message from Jesus that says, head for the hills. Why would a bunch of Jews be aware of what Jesus is saying in Matthew? Because they're starting to study the New Testament after the rapture has taken place. They're starting to see what is this all about? And they see a command from Jesus in there, and he says, head for the hills, and a bunch of them do. But at the end of the day, it's not all of them. It's just a few. They're looking for that trigger event to go and hide. Daniel, as we already read, is talking about a guy who's going to make a firm covenant, a peace treaty with Israel. He's going to make a 7-year peace deal. And it's going to be broken at the 3.5-year point in a very unusual way. By the way, this treaty has not been made. This is not what's going on with the UAE and with all of the Arab countries now making peace with Israel. That's not part of it. That is getting the deck chairs lined up, because they're not going to be taking part in the Gog-Magog war, but they're not going to be at war with Israel either. But Daniel 9:27 says he'll make a strong covenant with many for 1 week. So this is literally some guy that we find out later in the book of Revelation, who's called the Beast, is going to make a peace treaty with the nation of Israel for 7 years. And at the middle point of that 7 years, and this is 3.5 360-day years, he's going to end the treaty. And it says, on the wing of abomination shall come one who makes desolate until the decreed end is poured out on the desolator. So what is this event that they're looking forward to? What is the abomination of desolation? It has happened once already. And actually the apocryphal book of 1 Maccabees talks about a guy by the name of Antiochus Epiphanes who did this. In verse 44 of 1 Maccabees 1, it says this: the king, this is Antiochus, sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, and pollute the sanctuary and holy peoples, set up altars, groves, and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanliness and profanation. This is the King James version of it. To the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to this whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law And so they committed evils in the land and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation, there it is, upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burned incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, they burnt them with fire. They're sacrificing pigs on the altar. That's what's going on. Whosoever was found in any book of the testament, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was they should be put to death. This they did by their authority unto the Israelites every month to as many who was found in the cities. On the 5th and 20th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was the altar of God. And at which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. And these are not nice guys. They hanged the infants around their necks and rifled their houses and then killed them. Slew those who circumcised them. Antiochus Epiphanes was a picture of what the Antichrist is going to do, because Jesus refers to this. And the Maccabean revolt was all about eliminating that problem. He tried to do everything he could to destroy Judaism in Israel. Flavius Josephus, who is a historian, wrote this: "The king built an idol altar upon God's altar and slew swine upon it, and offered a sacrifice neither according to the law nor the Jewish religious worship in the country. He compelled them to forsake the worship which they paid their own God, and to adore those whom he took to be gods, and made them build temples and raise idol altars in every city and village, and offer swine upon them every day." By the way, when you see that they're offering pigs, it makes a whole world of difference when you see that Jesus goes across the Sea of Galilee to a city in a Gentile area that's worshiping all these false gods. He lets the demons go into pigs, and the pigs commit suicide by running into the water. And now there's no pigs to sacrifice to these false gods. I love how Jesus took out the entire economy of idol worship in one fell swoop. I just love how he did that. Isaiah 26:20 is addressing those who will become part of the remnant. The term, the indignation, is one of many Old Testament names for the tribulation. The believing Jewish remnant is told to hide until it's past. But it's also talking about those of us who have been taken away as well. Revelation 12:6, the woman fled into the wilderness where she is a place prepared for God, in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. That's where they're going to go hide. I don't know if there's a big beaming sign that'll come up out of the desert floor and say, "All Jews come here." I don't know what it will be, but they're going to know where to go. The text in verse 20 is for those who Jesus talked about living in Jerusalem at the point in time in the future when this world leader, identified as the beast in Revelation 13, enters the temple and says, "Worship me, I'm God." And then Daniel 11:36 says, "The king shall do as he wills. He shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak astonishing things against the God of gods, and he shall prosper till the indignation is accomplished, for what is decreed shall be done." There's that word again, the Old Testament phrase being used for the tribulation. God promises this, though, for the nation of Israel, for those who are the remnant. And he says this in Micah 2, verses 12 and 13. "Someday, O Israel, I will gather you. I will gather the remnant who are left. I will bring you together again like sheep in a pen, like a flock in its pasture. Yes, your land will again be filled with noisy crowds. Your leader will break out and lead you out of exile, out through the gates of the enemy cities, back to your own land. Your king will lead you. The Lord himself will guide you." It's an event that will take place at a point in time. The Lord will come out of his place and end the indignation. Or as it says in Zechariah 13, it'll come about in all of the land. And this is how many who will not make it through of all the Jews living in Israel. 2/3 of the people living there will die. That's more than the Holocaust, okay? But a third will survive who live there. I will bring that surviving third through, testing them as if through fire, purifying them like silver, assaying them like gold. They will call on my name. All of them at one time will call on God's name, and he'll answer them. And he'll say, "This is my people." And they say, "The Lord is my God." And that's the trigger point there for the second return of Jesus Christ in power with all of his forces coming to planet Earth to end the beast. The Lord begins to move mightily at this point. The heavens open. Messiah Jesus comes from his place. As it says in verse 21, behold, the Lord is about to come out from his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquity. And the earth will reveal her bloodshed and will no longer cover her slain. And did you catch the word, the Lord is about to come out? It's an imminent act. There's a sense of imminency about it. Just like the rapture, we have the doctrine of imminency, which is we're looking forward to the return of Jesus Christ, and there's nothing that needs to happen for that return to take place. He's about to. It's typical of the faith of Israel and the church, and it's the correct perception to see things as God sees them. We've lived with the doctrine of imminence, dealing with the return of Jesus Christ for over 2,000 years. There's nothing that has to happen prophetically for him to return to take the church home. He stands at the door and knocks. He will be like a thief in the night. And that same concept is here. Once the tribulation begins, we see in the book of Revelation that the beast will change times and frames, and the earth will probably have some things happen to it, and days may not be 24 hours, and people will lose track of what exactly a year is, probably. But they all know that at the end of 7 360-day years, Jesus comes back. His people are to anticipate that day, those who are part of the remnant, those who give their life to the Lord after the rapture and are still on planet Earth. They're to look forward to it and have God's perspective that his coming for them is imminent. We're familiar with John's description for this event from Revelation 19, and Isaiah's also covered this event as well. We'll get to it when we get to chapter 63, but this is Isaiah's version of what we see in the book of Revelation. Who is this who comes from Edom with garments of glowing colors from Basra? This one who is majestic in his peril, marching in greatness of his strength. It is I who speak in righteousness, mighty to save. Well, why is your apparel red and your garments like the one who treads in the winepress? I've trodden the wine trough alone, and from the peoples there was no man with me. I also trod them in my anger, and I trampled them in my wrath, and their lifeblood is sprinkled on my garments. And I stained all my raiment, for the day of vengeance was in my heart, and my year of redemption has come. I looked, there was no one to help, and I was astonished that there was no one to uphold. So my own arm brought salvation to me, and my wrath upheld me. I trod down the peoples in my anger, and made them drunk in my wrath, and I poured out their lifeblood on the earth. That's what Isaiah is talking about at the end of the age. Isaiah makes the point again in verse 21 that those being judged are the, quote, the inhabitants of the earth. Remember in Revelation it was all earth dweller, earth dweller, earth dweller. Well, Isaiah is saying it's inhabitant of the earth, inhabitant of the earth, inhabitant of the earth. That's the one who's being judged. It's the same as the earth dwellers of Revelation. Because we have to remember, Micah 1:3, the Lord is coming forth from his place. He will come down and tread on the high places of the earth. That's what the nation of Israel is looking forward to. But as the church, we have this promise. It's in 1 Thessalonians, chapter 5, verses 9 and 10. God has not destined us to receive wrath, but to obtain salvation through our Lord Jesus, the Messiah, who died for us in order that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him.
It's true that some of us are introverts and some of us are extroverts. But did you know Jesus designed us to function best when we're part of a community? We all have God-given gifts and abilities that, when used rightly and in conjunction with others, the effect for the kingdom of God will be profound. It will reach many who are lost and hurting. So, listeners, if you don't have a community that you belong to, won't you consider getting connected with ours? Or at least learning what we believe and why? The UnsafeBible.com has all that information, and we'd encourage you to read what's written there and then spend some time in prayer. The Unsafe Bible is a radio ministry based out of Jupiter, Florida. And we're so glad that you've paused long enough to listen to today's message from Pastor Ken. If you like what you heard today, and we've piqued your curiosity, why don't you satisfy it by checking out all the other messages we have for you? Go to the unsafebible.com and click on the Media tab. That's the direct link to our archive. We trust that what you find there will challenge and grow your faith. While you're there, be sure to check out the other ways to stay connected with what's happening here at Calvary Chapel, Martin County. Would you rather enjoy connecting through social media? You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Pick your favorite platform, or utilize all three. We trust that today's message from Isaiah spoke to your heart and challenged the parts of you that aren't looking like Jesus. Thanks for listening to the UnSafe Bible.